What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of an album that's been 10 years in the making. Well, I guess 6 years to be exact. This album was recorded in 2012 and we're not getting it until 2018. Why? Well, let's start back in 2008. Scars on Broadway becomes a thing officially, at least to the public, and we get the debut self-titled album. It's actually a really good effort. I went back and checked out the album again to see if it still holds up, and for the most part, it definitely does. There's everything from metal to hard rock and some other influences, and obviously a political stance from Daron Malakian. Now, Daron Malakian has added his name to the front of this band now, and it being Daron Malakian and Scars on Broadway. And that is important because he's really the only member at this point. In fact, the drummer of System of a Down, John, is no longer in this project. He's no longer involved as of 2012, and it's something where he didn't obviously part on bad terms. It was just apparently always meant to be a revolving door lineup of other musicians working with Daron. Now, for this new material that was recorded in 2012, that wasn't the only new material that was recorded. There's in fact other albums, and I think Daron is going back into the studio shortly after the release of this new album, Dictator, to record album number 3 with a new lineup and a new band. Now, this is exciting because obviously his other band, System of a Down, that you probably know him from, has famously not put out an album for 13 years now. We're dying over here. And me personally, honestly, maybe unpopular opinion, but I always kind of favored Daron Malakian over Serj Tankian and System of a Down. Don't get me wrong, I love them together, and I think that it sounds like ecstasy, or should I say like sugar, when they're together. But something about Daron I just always loved. I loved his creative spirit. I loved the way that he played guitar, and that just comes out on Scars on Broadway because it's his project. He did the majority of the writing and the playing with System anyways, so it's only natural that this kind of sounds like an extension of System of a Down. Now that we've caught you up to speed and pushed that mini rant aside, I am happy to hear Dictator by Scars on Broadway. This is once again a punishing, pummeling record that has plenty of political influences, also kind of a motivation coming from a place of dealing with tragedies that have been a part of his Armenian roots, and also kind of processing things in general. Obviously, the title Dictator is kind of a big word right there to throw out, and I do feel like the album is general enough to still be applicable in 2018. He wrote these songs that don't feel dated just because they were made in 2012. He wrote songs that have a good quality to them and a staying power, and like I said, this continues to feel like an extension of what he did with System of a Down in a very, very good way. There's plenty of thrash about songs that I really, really love. Fucking Kill comes to mind instantly for something that gets stuck in your head, and just a really menacing tone to the guitar. I love the riffs on We Won't Obey, which is a little bit maybe stale and predictable lyrically, but it's definitely forgivable for the fact that this song sounds so good with the guitars and even the drums on this record. Now, I will say one thing, maybe the drumming isn't quite as great on this one. Obviously, if you have John from System of a Down doing the first album with Scars on Broadway, that is a hard act to follow, and I really like him. Since I've already said the word Dictator so many times, we might as well go ahead and talk about the title track here. This is a towering, looming track that really hits home. I like how sticky it gets with the chorus, but also the verses. I feel like they're pretty well written, and they just leave a lingering, lasting impression on you, and you just kind of come back to it in your memory, and you instantly just kind of start to nod along, headbang along, remember that riff, and you start to play it, air guitar it all day. And that's something that I can say for so many of these songs. As you listen to it, whether it be driving, or you're at work, or you're just riding in the car, or at a party with other people, this is something that comes on and it just makes you want to cut loose and rebel. Kind of ironic that I mentioned the word rebel because Malakian was featured on the Linkin Park song Rebellion from the Hunting Party back in 2014. And that song was absolutely fantastic, and you could kind of see that he was still in a similar state of mind when he co-wrote that song with LP. Now, at this time, in 2012, when he was writing this record, there's definitely themes of an overtaking or a pushing down of a certain type of authority. And I think that we really also kind of got a history lesson, especially on the lead single Lives, which I think is fucking fantastic. One of my favorite songs of the year. Lives is something that basically gives us the history of the Armenian genocide that took place in the early 1900s. And it's something where you start to understand that he's singing and being the voice for these people who are kind of forgotten in history. And the instrumental here is absolutely mesmerizing, no pun intended. This is a track that just almost makes you hallucinate and want to do something just badass. I don't know, you want to break something when you hear that riff. It just storms in. It's like kicking through a couple of crates and you're just like, yes, break stuff, let's get going. And the lyrics here are also very, very sarcastic with the way that Malakian seems to highlight the fact that, oh, everybody dance, everybody get high, everything else. Forget about this stuff because why would you? Why would you remember this? We're the forgotten people in history. And I love the music video as well. I talked about this in my track review, but still, have to give a shout out there. The choreography and the way that he paid homage to his original home country, just beautiful. I feel like I'm lucid dreaming when I listen to Talkin' Shit, which is such a good song. This has existed for like almost a decade at this point. They were playing it live back in the day, along with Dictator and a couple of the other tracks that do land on this LP. I'm so glad that we got a recorded version because I had heard rough demos or live takes or whatever in the past, but this song is so good and the guitars here are unlike anything else that appear on the album. This is something where I do feel like you kind of get that lucid dream or maybe a fever dream type feel to them because they feel loose, spry, limber in the sense that they're trying something new, but they're really all over the fretboard and it sounds so great. And I like the message of the song too. It once again uses that sarcasm and that wit that Malakian has to hit home a bigger message. I think that really the only thing that's working against this album is the fact that it is very Malakian-ish. It's something that definitely has his signature all over it. And maybe the more you listen to it, the more you're gonna hear those things and you're gonna feel like, oh, I'm listening to System or I'm just listening to another creation of Malakian. But I don't feel like it's gonna be enough to bring down the entire project, although there are a few weaker moments that I just don't care for as much. It's not usually an entire song, it's just that sometimes some elements feel weaker. I already mentioned, even on a track that I really do love, We Won't Obey, I don't think the lyrics are the best, but still, the music definitely saves that one. I mean, not that it really needed saving, but still. And then some of the other cuts, like Till the End, just feel a little bit more safe. I don't really get any excitement from that track. I'm not feeling anything new. And then even traces of some of the other songs like Fucking Kill, which definitely does get in your face with its lyrics and its music. It just maybe overstays its welcome just a bit. Even though I know these weren't written about Donald Trump, I have to kind of think that they apply. The tracks that I'm about to talk about, Angry Guru and Dictator, come back to back. And it's just kind of funny how they were written in kind of a general sense, maybe talking about domination, authoritarianism, everything like that. And here, it just kind of tears into somebody. And I have to say, if I hear the phrase that says Angry Guru, and it kind of talks to this guy and the way that he sings this song, it seems like he's just kind of jesting and jabbing and throwing in little insults and kind of trying to topple somebody over. It's easy to pick apart somebody like Trump or somebody who's in authority that probably shouldn't be, and I feel like this song goes out to people like that. It does get political, but in a very good way, and if you've been listening to System of a Down, you know that this is something that they just do. It's something that is in Malakian's blood. Guns Are Loaded is absolutely thrilling to listen to. I love the way that this mixes things up vocally and gives a little bit of a lighter tone in places, but also sheds light with its lyrics and its narrative. I also love how this track isn't afraid to really storm in and break down the door when it needs to. And it doesn't always do that in terms of heaviness, even though it does have heavy tendencies. It does it in the sense that the entire song just feels like a ball of fire coming at you. Guns Are Loaded, a title like that, you know what's coming. Other great things do appear on this LP. I've touched on many of them, and unfortunately the album does close out on a little bit more of a less enjoyable note for me personally. It closes out on a couple of covers. One of them is an instrumental that sounds good. It actually reminds me a little bit of the System track Tentative, which is one of my favorites. It was in my top 10. Make sure you check out that video if you haven't already. and then Assimilate, which is a Skinny Puppy cover. It came off of their debut album released in 1985, and it's fine. I just don't know how fitting Daron's screams are on this one. They just feel a little bit more unnatural. Not forced per se, but still, just a little more unnatural, and he feels a bit out of his element here. It's a solid cover, but maybe not the best take. Hell, I'm really not complaining though, not much at least, because this is a great sophomore album. We had to wait a decade for this. I remember the first time I heard They Say on the radio, and I thought it was actually new System music, and I got really excited as a 15 or 16-year-old kid. And here I am now, after really getting into Scars on Broadway back then, falling for this new record. For the most part, I really do love a good majority. Me personally, I am going to rate this new album a 4. Let me know your thoughts on Dictator in the comments section down below. What do you think about System 2? Do you think that they will ever get their shit together? Or should they just go ahead and call it a day? Should they retire? I did a video on that recently over on Beyond ARTV. Check that out if you haven't seen it already. And I'd be curious to know what you think. Please drop a like on the video while you're here and subscribe to the channel because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. If you would like to see my top 10 favorite System of a Down songs, then tap right over here. Or see every System of a Down album ranked worst to best right over here. If you would like to donate on Patreon and help these videos keep coming each month, then click the top link down below, and I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.